Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Failure, it's just a few small errors in judgment repeated every day. That's the difference. Success and failure don't show up overnight. They show up over time. They compound. The daily choices you make either build your fortune or bury your future. The tragedy is that both are so easy. Saving $1 is easy, but so is spending it. Reading for 30 minutes is easy, but so is skipping it. Building consistency is simple, but so is neglecting it. And the weight of neglect is heavier than the weight of discipline. So tonight, let's talk about how forcing yourself to be consistent can change everything. Because when you master the daily disciplines, your money habits, your learning habits, your health habits, wealth starts to find you, freedom starts to follow you, and life begins to bend in your favor. We're going to uncover how simple acts, repeated daily, turn into extraordinary results. By the time we're finished, you'll see why consistency is the invisible hand that pulls everything else into place. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishments. That statement alone has the power to transform the way you look at your entire life. Most people live in the land of wishes. I wish I could be wealthy. I wish I could be free. I wish I could travel. I wish I could take care of my family. But wishes don't bring you wealth. Wishing doesn't change your bank account. Wishing doesn't buy back your time. Wishing doesn't put food on the table. Wishing is like standing on one side of the riverbank, staring at the other side where all your dreams live, and hoping somehow you'll magically float across. But you won't. The river is too wide, too strong, too unforgiving. The only way across is a bridge, and that bridge is discipline. Discipline means you take what you hope for and you put it into action, repeated, consistent action. It means you stop leaving your future to chance and you start designing it with your choices. When I was young, I thought if I just worked harder, if I just showed up and put in my hours, wealth would somehow find its way to me. But it didn't. I was working, but I wasn't disciplined. I had goals, but I had no bridge to reach them. Then I learned that wealth doesn't respond to how much you want it. Wealth responds to discipline. And once I understood that, everything began to change. So, how do you build this bridge called discipline? You don't build it overnight, and you don't build it with big leaps. You build it one plank at a time with small daily disciplines that you refuse to negotiate with. Let me tell you, the people who succeed aren't always the smartest. They aren't always the most talented, but they are the ones who decided on a few things they would do every day, no matter what. That's the power of daily non-negotiables. If you want to build wealth, let me suggest 3. First, read something every day. Ideas are the seeds of wealth, and reading plants those seeds in your mind. Just 20 minutes a day. Pick up a book on finance, philosophy, biographies of successful people. Fill your head with wisdom instead of noise. That alone, compounded daily, will give you an edge most people never find. Second, save or invest something every single day. It doesn't have to be much at the start. If all you can save is $1, then save that $1. If you can invest 5, invest 5. The amount doesn't matter nearly as much as the discipline does. What matters is that you are teaching yourself the habit of planting seeds for the future. Every dollar you save becomes a little worker for you out there in the marketplace, earning more. And when you get in the habit of doing it daily, wealth becomes inevitable. Third, review your goals every day. Don't let your goals be something you wrote down once and tucked away in a drawer. Bring them out daily. Look at them, read them, remind yourself why you started. When you keep your goals in front of you, they shape your decisions. They guide what you say yes to and what you say no to. Without daily review, goals fade into the background. With review, they stay alive and powerful. Discipline may sound hard, but let me promise you this. The pain of discipline weighs ounces, while the pain of regret weighs tons. If you don't build the bridge of discipline today, you'll look back in 10 years wishing you had. And remember, the bridge is built not with one massive act, but with daily planks: read, save, review. Do these 3 every single day, and you'll find yourself crossing the river, moving from wishing to accomplishing. And that's when life begins to change forever. Success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Let that settle in for a moment, because it carries within it both the good news and the bad. The good news is success isn't complicated. It doesn't require genius. It doesn't require luck, or being born into the right family, or having a magical opportunity fall into your lap. Success is built on simple things, disciplines so small that most people overlook them. The bad news is failure works the same way. Failure isn't a single catastrophe. Failure doesn't come knocking with a loud announcement. Failure slips in quietly, almost unnoticed. It comes in the form of small neglects, repeated every day. Skip the reading, ignore the saving, put off the exercise, spend the money without thought, and one day you wake up wondering why your life feels stuck. When I was younger, I used to think failure came suddenly. I imagined people losing everything in one big storm, or success arriving with a single breakthrough moment. But life doesn't work like that. Both success and failure are slow, quiet processes, shaped by the little things we either do or neglect every day. It's like planting a seed. You don't see the tree tomorrow. You water it, tend it, protect it, and one day the roots are deep, the branches wide, the fruit plentiful. But neglect it just a little every day, and the seed never grows. The soil doesn't scream at you. It just quietly lets your neglect rob you of the harvest that could have been. So the secret is simple. Replace neglect with daily actions. Small, easy, repeatable disciplines. They don't have to be huge. In fact, if they are too big, you won't sustain them. Success belongs to the small habits that compound, the ones that you can keep for years. And here's the truth, you already have rituals. The only question is whether they are rituals of neglect or rituals of discipline. Every morning you decide what to put in your body. Every evening you decide how to spend your time. Every day you decide whether you grow or decay. If you want to start this process of success, let me give you a very practical challenge. Pick just 3 tiny daily rituals. One for health, one for wealth, and one for learning. That's it. For health, maybe it's a 15-minute walk. Maybe it's drinking more water. Something small, something daily. For wealth, maybe it's saving $5, or writing down your expenses, or reviewing your bank account for 5 minutes. Again, small, daily, doable. For learning, it could be reading 10 pages, or listening to a podcast, or writing a reflection in your journal. Don't make it grand, make it consistent. Now here's the key. Track them. Get a simple calendar, hang it where you see it every day, and mark it every time you complete your rituals. There's something powerful about seeing the chain of consistency. Day after day, you'll see proof that you are building the disciplines of success, and it will motivate you to keep going. Because success doesn't reward intensity, it rewards consistency. When I finally understood this, it changed my life. I stopped waiting for breakthroughs and started stacking small victories. Every book read became a seed. Every dollar saved became a brick. Every walk taken became a step toward health. Over time, those small disciplines transformed everything: my health, my wealth, my relationships, my mind. Success is never sudden. It's quiet, it's daily, it's simple. A few small disciplines practiced every day. Failure is never sudden either. It's quiet, it's daily, it's simple. A few small neglects repeated every day. And the choice is yours every morning, every evening, every decision. Will you plant the seeds of success, or will you quietly neglect them until one day it's too late? Because one thing is certain, discipline weighs ounces, neglect weighs tons. Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. Money does not respond to good intentions. You can hope for it, wish for it, dream about it, even write it down on a vision board, but until you give money a direction, it slips right through your fingers. Money is obedient, but only to instruction. If you don't tell it where to go, it will follow impulse. And impulse usually leads to things you didn't need, moments you don't even remember, and a bank account that feels like it has holes in the bottom. Early in my life, I used to say, one day, when I have more, I'll start saving. And that sounded reasonable. But I learned that one day never comes. There's always another bill, another emergency, another temptation to spend. The truth is, you don't save after spending. If you try that, there's never anything left. You save before you spend. You pay yourself first. That principle changed everything for me. It was a shift in philosophy from I'll save if I can to I'll save because I must. The discipline comes before the desire. Here's how it works. Decide on a percentage, 10, 15, maybe even 20%. Whatever the number, commit to it and make it non-negotiable. The moment money touches your account, carve that portion out and direct it to your future. Not after you buy groceries, not after you go out to dinner, not after the vacation. It comes first. Why? Because money that is left over is money that doesn't exist. Life has a way of consuming every spare dollar if you let it. When I first practiced this, I set up an automatic transfer. The day my income arrived, a slice of it moved straight into savings and investments, and I never touched it. Out of sight, out of temptation. What amazed me was how quickly I adapted to living on the rest. The first few weeks felt tight, but then something shifted. I realized I had been wasting so much on things that didn't matter. By removing that portion up front, I forced myself to be creative, disciplined, and resourceful with the remainder, and in exchange, I began building a foundation for the future. Think of it like planting seeds from every harvest. A farmer doesn't consume the whole crop. He takes some for today, yes, but he also sets aside seed for tomorrow. Without that discipline, next season never comes. Too many people consume 100% of their harvest and then wonder why they have nothing left to plant. Wealth is not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep and how consistently you keep it. Now let's talk psychology. Saving before spending is not just a financial strategy. It's a mental shift. It tells you, I am worthy of paying myself first. My future matters as much as my present. That's an act of self-respect. You're no longer leaving your future to chance, you're designing it. And the moment you take that control, your confidence changes. You walk differently, you plan differently, you see opportunities differently, because you know you are building something permanent, not just chasing the next expense. Let me give you a practical challenge. Tonight, set up an automatic system. It doesn't have to be huge. If all you can do is 5%, start there. The percentage is less important than the principle. Automate it. Don't rely on willpower. Let the system do the heavy lifting. And then, every month, increase it little by little until you reach that 10 to 20% range. Imagine where you'd be a year from now. 5 years? 10 years? The power of consistency and compounding will surprise you. Money obeys direction, not intention. So give it clear instructions. Pay yourself first every single time That small act of discipline will become the bridge to your financial independence. Because if you can't manage a little, you won't manage a lot. And if you can't save before spending now, wealth will always be just a wish, not a reality. Because here's the truth. The habit of paying yourself first builds not just wealth, but character. And wealth without character never lasts. Consistency is one of those quiet forces that doesn't look powerful at first, but over time, it becomes unstoppable. Most people underestimate what can be accomplished in 10 years, yet they overestimate what can be done in 10 weeks. That's why so many chase shortcuts and get frustrated when the results don't come fast enough. Wealth doesn't work on your impatience, it works on time, discipline, and persistence. Just as compound interest multiplies money, consistency multiplies your life. But only if you stay long enough. Let me tell you about compound interest. It's been called the eighth wonder of the world, and for good reason. The idea is simple. Money that earns interest begins to earn interest on its own interest. At first, the growth looks slow, almost disappointing. But year after year, it starts to curve upward until the numbers become staggering. The magic isn't in the first year or even the second, it's in the discipline of leaving it alone, of not interrupting the process. Now, what most people don't realize is that life works the same way. Habits compound, discipline compounds, knowledge compounds, and just like compound interest, the payoff shows up after years of staying consistent when others quit. When I was younger, I used to get discouraged because I wanted results now. I wanted my income to jump, my savings to grow, my skills to skyrocket overnight if possible. But life doesn't reward urgency, it rewards patience mixed with consistency. When I finally committed to a 10-year vision instead of chasing a 10-week miracle, everything changed. My savings began to grow, my investments started to bear fruit, and my reputation for discipline opened doors I didn't even know existed. Because consistency is not just about money, it builds trust with yourself, with others, and with opportunity. The danger is in interrupting the compounding. Too many people build for a while, then stop. They save for a few months, then splurge it all. They read for a few weeks, then quit when life gets busy. They exercise for a season, then abandon it when the scale doesn't move fast enough. That stop and start behavior destroys momentum. It's like pulling money out of an account just as the interest is about to accelerate. You don't just delay growth, you reset it. And every reset costs you years. That's why you must decide today, no more interruptions. Make consistency your rule. The amount doesn't have to be massive. If all you can save is $50 a month, save it. If all you can invest in your skill is 30 minutes a day, invest it. The key is not the size, it's the rhythm. Just like the heart keeps you alive with steady beats, consistency keeps your future alive with steady actions. Over time, the small beats create something powerful, something unshakable. Here's the practical step I want you to take. Write down a 10-year wealth plan, not a 10-week challenge, not a trendy shortcut, but a decade-long commitment. Where do you want to be in 10 years financially? Write it clearly. How much do you want saved? What skill do you want mastered? What debt do you want gone? What investments do you want producing income? Then ask yourself, what small, consistent actions will I take every week to move toward that vision? It doesn't need to be fancy. Simple disciplines, practiced daily, tracked weekly, sustained yearly. That's the formula. Think of it this way. A tree doesn't grow tall by stretching overnight. It grows because season after season, it pushes a little deeper into the soil, a little higher toward the Sunday. You can't see much change in a week, but look again in 10 years and you'll be amazed. Your financial life works exactly the same. So commit today. Not for 10 days, not for 10 weeks. Commit for 10 years. Because once you stay long enough, once you let compounding do its work, you'll find that consistency has quietly built you a fortune, not just in money, but in character, confidence, and freedom. And here's the truth. Shortcuts may look exciting, but consistency will make you rich. If you want to know why some people seem to climb ladders faster, earn more, and create opportunities while others stay stuck in the same place, the answer's not luck, it's growth. The marketplace pays for value, and value's tied to skills. Here's the simple truth. Income rarely exceeds personal growth. If you want to earn more, you must become more. If you want to have more, you must learn more. That's the law. One of the biggest lessons I learned early in life was this. Money doesn't come because you need it. It comes because you've developed the capacity to attract it. The marketplace isn't emotional. It doesn't respond to tears, complaints, or wishes. It responds to value. If you become more valuable, you earn more. If you stagnate, your income stagnates. That's why consistency in learning isn't a luxury, it's survival. The person who keeps growing, who keeps learning, who keeps sharpening their mind and expanding their skills becomes indispensable. I used to think earning was only about working harder, but I was wrong. If you dig ditches, you can only dig so many before your body gives out. But if you add knowledge, suddenly you can design irrigation systems instead of digging trenches. If you add skills, suddenly you're leading teams instead of just following orders. You don't get paid for the hour, you get paid for the value you bring to that hour. And the only way to raise the value is to raise yourself. Now, here's where consistency comes in. Most people learn in bursts. They get excited, buy a course, read for a week, maybe attend a seminar, and then stop. That's not how growth works. Growth is compounding. Just like money compounds with time, learning compounds with discipline. Read one book and you'll get a few ideas. Read 50 books and your mind becomes a different landscape. Practice 1 hour of a skill and you'll feel clumsy. Practice 1 hour a day for a year and you'll feel mastery beginning to take shape. That's the magic of consistency. It multiplies not just knowledge, but earning power. I remember a young man who came to me once, complaining about his income. He said, "I can't seem to get ahead." I asked him, "How much time do you spend every day learning something new?" He looked puzzled. He said, "I finished school years ago." That's the problem, he thought. Education stopped with a diploma. But real wealth demands lifelong learning. The diploma might get you in the door, but growth is what keeps you advancing. I told him, if you'd commit to reading for 45 minutes a day, studying one skill deeply, in a year, your income wouldn't even recognize you. He thought I was exaggerating. But those who take that advice discover it's true. The marketplace can't ignore someone who grows daily. So here's the practical step. Choose one high-value skill and dedicate 45 minutes every day to mastering it. Not 10 different things, not dabbling, just one. If you want to be a better communicator, read books on communication. Practice speeches. Study those who do it well. If you want to be better at investing, study finance daily. Watch how the markets move and practice analyzing businesses. If you want to master sales, dive into persuasion, psychology, and daily role play until it becomes second nature. Pick one skill, stay consistent, and let the compounding take over. Don't underestimate what 45 minutes a day can do. That's over 270 hours in a year. That's mastery territory. That's the difference between being average and being in demand. That's the difference between hoping for opportunities and creating them. Consistency in learning doesn't just multiply your earning, it multiplies your confidence, your creativity, and your influence. The more you know, the more you can solve problems. The more problems you solve, the more the marketplace rewards you. And over time, The reward doesn't just come in dollars. It comes in freedom, choices, and the ability to build the life you once only dreamed about. So remember this, income rarely exceeds personal growth. If you want to change your paycheck, first change yourself. 45 minutes a day is not much, but when practiced daily, it's enough to make you unrecognizable in a year and indispensable in a decade. And if you'll stay consistent with that, everything else will begin to fall into place. It's been said that first we form habits, then habits form us. And I can tell you from personal experience that truth determines the difference between those who live paycheck to paycheck and those who build fortunes. See, you don't decide your future. You decide your habits, and your habits decide your future. Wealth is never the result of one grand decision. It's the quiet repetition of disciplines that, when stacked day after day, begin to sculpt your destiny. When I was younger, I thought big changes required big actions. I imagined that if I could just land one major deal or stumble upon some golden opportunity, everything would shift overnight. But I was wrong. Wealth doesn't usually arrive in a lightning strike. It arrives like the sunrise, slow, steady, inevitable for the one who keeps showing up. And what makes the sunrise possible in your life are the habits you commit to daily. Here's the truth. Habits run deeper than motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Some days you'll feel like it, most days you won't. But habits don't ask for your permission. Once they're formed, they run on autopilot. That's why the most powerful thing you can do for your financial life is not to depend on motivation, but to deliberately craft habits that keep you on track even when you don't feel like it. Think of it like this. If every morning you brush your teeth, you don't debate whether or not you should. The habit has already decided for you. Now imagine if you could treat saving money, reviewing your goals, or learning a new skill with the same automatic certainty. That's where wealth begins, when financial discipline becomes as normal as brushing your teeth. So how do we anchor these habits? The secret is to attach them to routines you already live. Don't try to squeeze new habits into a vacuum. Tie them to the rhythms already in motion. For example, while having breakfast, take 2 minutes to review your spending from yesterday. Over coffee, look at where the money went. That tiny practice creates awareness, and awareness is the first step to control. At lunch, read for a few minutes. Even just 10 pages of a book on finance, business, or personal growth will feed your mind more than scrolling through a feed of distractions. And at dinner, take 5 minutes to look at your investments, or make a small plan for where your money will go next. 3 meals, 3 wealth habits, anchored to something you already do. Suddenly, your day becomes a structure of disciplines instead of a chaos of impulses. When I began doing this myself, I didn't see massive changes right away. But over weeks and months, I started noticing my thinking shift. Spending became intentional, learning became consistent, and planning became a daily rhythm. And once the habits set in, wealth stopped being something I had to chase. It started being something I naturally attracted. People often ask me, how long does it take to build wealth? My answer is always the same. Wealth shows up the moment you've built the habits to sustain it. Without habits, even sudden money will vanish. With habits, even small money will multiply. That's why it's not about what you make. It's about what you keep and what you consistently direct into the future. Remember, first we form habits, then habits form us. If you form habits of neglect, they'll form a life of regret. But if you form habits of discipline, they'll form a life of wealth. And the beautiful thing is this, habits don't care where you start. They only care that you start. Tie them to your routines, repeat them until they're second nature, and soon enough, your habits will be building your fortune while you hardly even notice the effort. And when you look back after a year or two, you'll see the truth that consistency built the habits, and the habits built the wealth. One of the greatest dangers on the path to wealth is not the lack of opportunity, not even the lack of knowledge, it's the presence of unchecked emotions. Emotions sabotage wealth far more often than math does. The numbers themselves are simple. You earn, you spend, you save, you invest. On paper, it all looks logical and neat. But the moment you add human emotion, fear, greed, envy, impatience, suddenly the math doesn't matter. We overspend when we're excited. We pull money out of investments when we're afraid. We take on debt because we want something now instead of later. And each of those emotional decisions feels small in the moment, but together they can undo years of progress. When I was younger, I had the bad habit of making financial decisions based on moods. If I was feeling good, I'd spend more. If I was feeling low, I'd buy something to cheer myself up. I was letting my moods run my money, and as a result, my money kept disappearing. Then I realized something. Wealth doesn't respond to moods. It responds to rules. Just as gravity doesn't care whether you feel like jumping or not, the laws of wealth don't care whether you feel like saving or spending. If you follow them, they reward you. If you break them, they punish you. Simple as that. That's why consistency is so important. It protects you from yourself. It keeps your discipline in place even when your emotions try to pull you in another direction. Imagine a pilot flying a plane through turbulence. If he reacts emotionally to every bump and jerk, he'll steer the plane into chaos. But if he sticks to his instruments, follows his training, and trusts the rules of flight, he'll ride through the turbulence and land safely. That's exactly how you must treat your finances. Stick to your rules, not your moods. So here's a simple but powerful practice. Write down 3 money rules for yourself, and then let those rules govern your financial decisions, no matter what you're feeling in the moment. For example, one rule might be that you save 15% of every dollar you earn, no matter how small. Another might be that you always invest 10% in a long-term account. A third might be that you never take on consumer debt. If you can't buy it with cash, you can't afford it. 3 simple rules. Once they're written down, your job is not to argue with them, not to negotiate with them, not to bend them when you're tempted. Your job is simply to follow them. The beauty of rules is that they eliminate the daily debate. Without them, every purchase is an emotional wrestling match. Should I buy it? Should I save? Maybe just this once. But with rules, the decision is already made. It doesn't matter if you're excited, stressed, or tired, the rule has already decided for you. And that consistency is what builds wealth steadily over time. I remember one time, early in my career, I had an opportunity to make what looked like a quick profit if I broke one of my money rules. I was tempted. The numbers looked good, my emotions were running high, but I stuck to my rules. A few months later, that opportunity collapsed, and everyone who chased it lost their money. That was the moment I realized. Rules aren't restrictions, they're protections. They protect you from impulses, they protect you from the crowd, they protect you from short-term feelings that could destroy long-term wealth. So don't trust your emotions with money, trust your rules. Decide them when you're calm, and live by them when you're tempted. Write them down, review them often, and most importantly, practice them consistently until they become second nature. That's when emotions lose their power to derail you. Because at the end of the day, wealth isn't about avoiding emotions, it's about building a system strong enough to stand firm when emotions arise. Consistency is that system. And once you've built it, you'll find yourself making better choices, not because you felt like it, but because you followed your rules. And that's how fortunes are built, not with moods, but with discipline. When I first began to understand wealth, one of the greatest lessons I learned was this: you don't get paid for your time, You get paid for the value you bring in that time. That distinction is life-changing. If wealth came simply from hours, then the hardest workers in the fields and factories would be the richest among us. But we know that isn't the case. Time is equal. Each of us gets 24 hours a day. Value is unequal, and that's where wealth is born. The secret, then, is not to simply work harder, but to work smarter in such a consistent way that your efforts multiply beyond your own hands. Now, how do we make that happen? Through leverage. And leverage isn't built overnight, it's built through consistent systems. Think about it this way. Every time you repeat a task manually, you're spending more of your limited time. But every time you create a system, you're building leverage. You're turning one effort into many. Imagine if a farmer had to dig every hole, plant every seed, water every crop by hand, every single season. He'd wear himself out and produce very little. But once he invests in tools, irrigation, and systems, his farm produces more than his own two hands ever could. Wealth works the same way. When I started in business, I didn't understand this. I was doing everything myself, phone calls, paperwork, meetings, every little detail. I thought I was saving money, but what I was really doing was wasting potential. Then I discovered the principle of documenting processes. Each week, I began writing down how I did one thing, whether it was handling a client inquiry, closing a sale, or preparing a report. Once it was written, I could hand it to someone else, or better yet, find a way to automate it. And each process I documented was like freeing up a little bit of my time so I could focus on higher value activities. The beauty of consistency here is that small steps add up. One process documented each week may not sound like much, but do it for a year, and suddenly you have 52 systems running without your constant involvement. That's leverage. That's how your time begins to multiply. Because here's the truth. If you're always the one pulling the cart, your progress will always be limited. But if you build a system where others can pull, or where the cart pulls itself, your output grows without adding more hours. I once heard someone say, amateurs practice until they get it right. Professionals practice until they can't get it wrong. Systems are your way of making wealth professional. When you create a process and stick to it, you eliminate waste, you reduce errors, and you gain consistency. And when consistency meets leverage, income begins to grow in ways that surprise you. It's the same with investing. Automating your savings and investments means you're no longer dependent on willpower or memory. It happens without your daily decision. That's a system. It frees you from error, it frees you from emotion, and it multiplies your effort. Over time, those consistent deposits turn into a powerful force working in your favor. So here's the practical step. Pick one process each week that drains your time and write it down. It could be how you manage emails, how you follow up with customers, how you handle your budgeting. Once it's documented, find a way to delegate it to someone else or automate it with a tool. Each small process you free up is another brick in the foundation of leverage. And with enough bricks, you're not building a job anymore. You're building a business, you're building a fortune, you're building freedom. Because in the end, consistency in work is not about endless effort. It's about multiplying effort. It's about turning your daily disciplines into systems that produce results long after you've moved on to higher ground. That's when your income begins to separate from your hours. And that's when wealth truly begins to compound. When I was young, I thought memory was enough. I believed that the things I learned, the ideas I had, the lessons from each day would stay with me simply because I felt them deeply at the time. But I discovered that feelings fade and memory betrays us. A thought you swear you'll never forget can disappear overnight. A lesson you paid dearly for can slip away in a matter of weeks. That's when I realized the power of journaling. The weakest ink, as they say, is stronger than the strongest memory. And that truth has made all the difference in my own journey toward wealth, growth, and discipline. Journaling is not just about keeping a record. It's about keeping yourself on track. It's about making sure your life is not lived by accident, but by design. When you sit down each evening, pen in hand, and capture the day, the progress, the failures, the lessons, you're doing more than writing words. You're shaping the story of your own life. You're turning random days into deliberate steps. Without a journal, the days blur together. With a journal, every day has weight. Every mistake has a lesson. Every victory has a place in your record of progress. I began journaling during a time when I felt stuck. I was working hard, but I couldn't see where I was going. My progress felt invisible. Then I started a simple habit. At the end of the day, I wrote down 3 things: what I earned, what I learned, and what I would do tomorrow. At first, it seemed small, but after a week, I could see a pattern. I could measure how much I was actually earning, not just guessing. I could see whether I was learning something daily or just repeating the same mistakes. And most importantly, I could set a direction for tomorrow. That habit turned into momentum. The days no longer slipped away. They built on each other. Consistency in journaling does something powerful. It creates accountability with yourself. You can't hide from the truth on paper. If you write down your spending every night, you'll see where the leaks are. If you track your progress on saving or investing, you'll see whether you're growing or standing still. If you record the lessons you learned, you'll make sure you never pay twice for the same mistake. And if you write down your plan for tomorrow, you'll start each day with clarity instead of confusion. I remember one season when I was working toward a big financial goal. It felt overwhelming, but when I broke it down and tracked it nightly, I could see the small wins adding up. One night I might write, "Today I saved $20. Another night, "Today I closed a sale." Another, "Today I invested an hour learning a new skill." Alone, these might seem small, but when I read back through the pages at the end of the month, I could see the compounding effect of consistency. The journal became proof that I was moving forward, even when the days felt ordinary. And here's something remarkable. Journaling not only tracks your progress, it also strengthens your decision-making. Why? Because the act of writing forces you to slow down and reflect. You can't just breeze past your mistakes if you have to write them down. You can't ignore your wins if you record them in ink. Reflection turns experiences into lessons. Without reflection, you might repeat the same error tomorrow. With reflection, you extract the wisdom and improve. So here's the practical step. Take just 10 minutes every night. Write down what you earned, whether it's money, opportunities, or progress. Write down what you learned, because every day has a teacher if you're willing to listen. And write down what you will do tomorrow, because a written plan has far more power than a passing thought. It doesn't have to be elegant. It doesn't have to be long, but it has to be consistent. Over time, those pages will become your personal textbook of success. They will hold your victories, your failures, your lessons, your strategies. They will remind you of how far you've come and keep you focused on where you're going. And most importantly, they will keep you on track. Because success is not an accident. It's a record of disciplines, practiced and refined, written in ink, and lived with purpose.